Right, and we are live on YouTube already, but there you go. So I'm gonna share with you a link. So nobody's watching yet, so that's good. So check the chat. I'm gonna share the thing in the chat. Right, and we are live on. So you can share that link with anybody that you want to share it with as well, so that they can tune in, ask questions. You are on the Leadership Masterclass, and I am with Ron Hyams as well as Stegmann. We will be going live in about 5 minutes, but you're going to be having Vuka online radio news in the meantime. And then we will be talking leadership and some of the experiences of leadership. For now, stay put, just listen to ask questions. You are on the Leadership Masterclass, and I am with Ron Hyams as well as Stegmann. We will be going live in about 5 minutes, but you're going to be having online radio news in the meantime. And then we will be talking leadership and some of the experiences of leadership. For now, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to send you guys the podcast of the show afterwards. You can also share that after we load it.
Good.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
All right, stand by. We're almost there. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to send you guys the podcast of the show afterwards. You can also share that after we load it.
Good.
Is that all right?
Sounds good.
Okay, we are live, Ron, so I'm gonna mute you. I'll give you an indication now to talk, because we are now literally on air. So I've muted you guys, and then I'll unmute you when it's then time to talk. That will give you a sign. But what's also going to happen is when I say we're going to take a break, I will do the counting. Then that will also give you an idea to pause a bit, and then there will be music playing in the background and all of those things. So, and it's very likely to go very wrong sometimes, but we are live. So when you're live, some things go wrong, but I think what's important is having a conversation. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you are on Vuka Online Radio. It's time for news.
The notice comes a week after the company called a meeting with the unions to discuss the 40% salary cuts or hours of work with all key stakeholders present. However, the company failed to adhere to its own processes where such matters should or can be discussed at the bargaining chamber with all key stakeholders, the union has said. The union has called for the government to intervene in the matter, saying that the post office should be given a financial bailout to avoid the looming retrenchments. Al-Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has called for serious action over illegal guns following the merciless public murders of hip-hop star Keenan aka Forbes and his close friend, celebrity chef Tebello Tibbs Motswane. In a somber interview outside the family's home in Johannesburg, Lesufi said strengthening gun laws was discussed at length at a recent Lekgotla. This would apply across the board, from private security companies to armed illegal miners. Forbes and Motswane were shot dead outside the restaurant on Florida Road in Devon on Friday night. The delegation of ANC officials who visited the star's family included ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula and ANC Gauteng Provincial Secretary T.K. Musa. The Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime has noted in a report in 2021 that guns are the currency in the underworld circles and that many illegal weapons come from civilian gun owners whose firearms have been lost in or are stolen from the state institutions. Israel's Justice Minister Yariv Levin on Sunday accused the country's Attorney General Gail Barak Miara and the President of the country's Supreme Court Esther Hayat of trying to stage a coup d'etat against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu by admitting to a hearing an appeal filed by a group against the highly controversial judicial reform being prepared by the executive. Levin in particular condemned the Supreme Court's decision to consider a petition filed by a group of lawyers and the Supreme Court's decision to consider a petition filed by a group of lawyers and activists, the so-called Movement for Equality Government, to force the Prime Minister to take a leave of absence. The petition argues that Netanyahu, in seeking to enact sweeping judicial changes, violates a conflict of interest agreement that prevents him from participating in matters that could affect his ongoing corruption trial. In your sports, world number 9, Belinda Bencic saved 3 match points on her way to a 12th WTA Tour match win and second title of the season in Abu Dhabi. Bencic needed to be resilient to overcome 8th seed Ludmila Savsarova 1-6, 7-6, 6-4 in a staring 168-minute championship showdown at the Emirati city. The stats might have given Samsonova some confidence as she could secure her 5th WTA Tour title in 5 finals, and she had also been unbeaten against Bencic. The Swiss star will move up 1 place on the WTA rankings and is set to nip across to Qatar for next week's Doha Open. And Scotty Scheffler outdueled to Canada's Nick Taylor down at the back 9 Sunday to repeat as PGA Phoenix Open champion and overtake Rory McIlroy on the world number 1 ranking. It was the 26-year-old American's first title since capturing last year's Masters and returned him to the ranking summit. He surrendered to Northern Ireland's McIlroy last October. Scheffler fired a 6-under par 65 in Sunday's final round to complete 72 holes at TPC Scottsdale on 19 under 265 and defeat Taylor by 2 strokes for the $3.6 million top prize and his 5th career PGA title. For this and other sports news, tune in to Vuka Sports Hour every weekday at 3 p.m. Pretoria will be cloudy and hot with temperature highs of 26 degrees and scattered thunderstorms. Johannesburg, cloudy and warm with temperature highs of 24 degrees and scattered thunderstorms. Cape Town, sunny and hot with temperature highs of 29 degrees. Durban, cloudy and hot with temperature highs of 27 degrees and extensive thunderstorms. Bloemfontein, partly cloudy and hot with temperature highs of 29 degrees. Polokwane, cloudy and warm with temperature highs of 25 degrees with scattered thunderstorms. Uppington, sunny and extremely hot with temperature highs of 39 degrees. Port Elizabeth, partly cloudy and hot with temperature highs of 28 degrees. East London, cloudy and hot with temperature highs of 28 degrees. For Vuka Online Radio News, I am Mungas Makalima.
SA's lowest cost bank account is here. No monthly fees, no debit orders, and free money transfers. Now you can do even more from your phone for free, like pay bills and buy airtime or data. And it works on any phone. Register via the ShopRite app or dial this number. Powered by ShopRite.
No one decides to go into debt. It creeps up on you, slowly. Debt follows debt, follows debt. Unless you do something about it.
Face your debt problems.
Face your debt problems before they cripple you.
To do something.
It's time to do something.
Waking up all day
Waking up all day with Vuka Online Radio.
You're listening to Vuka Online.
More music, more inspiration. Vuka Online.
It's time for Leadership Mondays on Vuka Online Radio.
Hey, you are on the Leadership Masterclass, and you are with Mongezi. And as usual, on this day, we have a conversation about leadership. I'm talking to some of the top leaders with leadership in the world, right? And today is no different because, but one of the things that's different today, so there will obviously be a bit of an interesting challenge because sometimes there might be Googles that happen when you go online, but these two gentlemen are actually going to just blow our minds so that we will forgive ourselves, right? We live in a VUCA world after all. So I have Ron Hyams as well as Stegmann, who will be taking us through some of the conversations around leadership. And they'll actually be having a conversation together because, I like do that now. So I just want to get out of the way and get the smart people to do the conversation. So Ron and I have been doing some work together for a while. Met a couple of years ago, Ron. Yeah.
So more than a couple. It's got to be 10 years by now, or maybe more.
It's about time. Yeah. He's a very experienced business coach, management development, career transition expert, and he's very sharp. Ron is very tricky. Whenever he works with people, he's gentle, but then he smacks you a little bit, and then you move around, and then you get things done. He gets things done. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself a little bit. I always ask a very funny question, a very weird question, and I'm directing it to you, the two of you gentlemen. What gives you a right to talk about leadership on this show?
So that's a challenging place to start, Mongezi, but let me answer that, and then I'm sure Sean's going to answer. I've been coaching since about 1993, before coaching was a thing. And now it's $1 billion worldwide industry. I worked with a company that was, according to the Economist Intelligence Unit, was the market leader in London. That's when I lived in London before I emigrated to South Africa. I've been doing global leadership programs for companies like Shell, Unilever. We're working with a top 5 SA law firm, as you know, because we're working together on that. Enough about me. Let me introduce my colleague, friend, and now business partner, Sean. Actually needs no introduction. Ex-CEO of Cash Crusaders, built quite a business. And what we really want to get into, how did he do it? But also, what would be the lessons for all of us, each of us, listeners? What can we take away and apply in our world? Sean, just briefly by way of introduction, what do you want to say?
Morning, Ron. Morning, Mongezi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So just briefly, my background in leadership is I've had 15 years as the CEO of Cash Crusaders. I was the MD and COO of a company called iTouch for 6 years, which was listed on the London Stock Exchange. So I've got quite a background in leadership. And what I'd like to talk about today is some of the principles that helped me in my life, in my personal life and business life, that helped me in be the leader that I was, to be able to create, a Cash Crusaders of a 2.5 billion turnover group.
Fantastic. And
yeah, that's a great record there. So what I want to check though, because usually what I see whenever I ask this question, people introduce themselves by their jobs. But I'm kind of curious to know, who are you? And maybe let's jump into you, Sean, first, and then Ron, maybe you can add a little bit, because I want the listeners to also know who the humans are, because this is also about humanizing leadership. Give us a bit of highlights around your human journey to leadership very high level?
I've always been fascinated by leadership. I'm the type of guy that reads lots of leadership books. I think it's just something that I think everyone is a leader in their life in some way. We all are leaders in our homes, we leaders in our communities, sometimes even leaders in churches. And mine was just to challenge myself to be as good a leader as I could be. And part of what I used was, my dad always taught me as a youngster to read books, because he said to me, take what someone's taken 10 years to learn, you can learn that in 2 weeks. And that's been kind of like what my ethos is to, I'm a learner, I seek knowledge.
Yeah, sounds good. And Ron, you as you highlighted obviously your work as a coach and how you got to be a coach, but more than that, you're more than a coach, right? There's also a lot about you as far as the leadership story is concerned. You want to share a little bit of highlight before then we move into the conversation that you guys does? Because I'm going to be just facilitating, but I want my listeners to just know who we're talking to right now.
Sure. Well, I'm a proud father of 2 boys and husband to my wife, Margaret. Really, they're actually just about to leave the nest. So it's a sweet spot. You know, they're smart, interesting adults up to all kinds of adventures. And you kind of have to do a reframe at some point where you go, I'm not talking to a kid anymore. This is a smart dude I'm talking to. And that's a real pleasure. I suppose you could say I'm getting to be an elder. I hate to admit it. Maybe Mongezi, we're starting to share that. I think I've got a few years on you. But I tell you what, I ain't going to stop learning, and I'm not going to stop going for it, because I think that's what brings aliveness. So I live in Cape Town. I love getting on the sea. I get on the sea maybe 3-4 times a week. I paddle a surf ski. It's like a kayak. I love catching waves. So I'm still going for it in my way. And actually, what I'm doing with Sean, we're on a new adventure. It's our business version of getting out on the waves and seeing what we can do. So I think we've got something.
Sounds good. You are on the Leadership Masterclass, and I am, as you have heard, with my guest, Sean Stegmann, as well as Ron Hyams. And I'm going to let them have a conversation amongst themselves, but we need to take a quick break. And you're going to have a cup of coffee, you're going to drink or whatever. It's a rainy day here in the capital of South Africa, Mzansi, Tshwane Mamelodi. But there's no rain that's going to be getting in our way. And feel free to ask us any questions that you want to ask about the show itself. Follow us at Vuka Online Radio on all our socials, and we have even a WhatsApp group. WhatsApp number. I just never know what it is, but just try to find us everywhere. But come to our YouTube channel as well. You will be able to see this. Well, if you're seeing this, actually you are already on the YouTube channel. So type your message here at the bottom, and then we'll be able to pick it up and then answer some of the questions. But we need to take a quick break, and we'll be back with the Leadership Masterclass after this.
The Africa Center for Work-Based Learning.
The Africa Center for Work-Based Learning is a professional development center for professionals who aim to improve their professional standing. This means that the learning programs we run are more than just academic programs. They are work-based programs that focus on leveraging your current experience as a professional to build your overall profile. A year down the line, the Africa Center for Work-Based Learning is developing into a preferred center for professional development in Pretoria, with 8 professional development faculties including accounting, teaching, entrepreneurship, as well as IT and many more. For more information, go to acwbl.org or dial +27 12 751 7608. The Africa Center for Work-Based Learning, where work is learning.
More music, more inspiration. Vuka Online.
To the Leadership Masterclass, and I am with Ron Hyams and with Sean Stegmann. Gentlemen, I'm going to let you get on with it. And Ron, this is your table. This is your table now to just have this conversation about leadership. You mentioned there are some lessons that you experienced and you wanted you and Sean to talk about. Over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mongezi. So let's start with the facts. You joined a good business. Cash Crusaders were a good business when you joined it. It had 120 stores. It had a turnover of 650 million. Not too shabby. You grew it into a great business, 2.5 billion and 260 stores. So as I've said, I think the question is, how the heck did you do that? And what can we take away from that? But why don't we track back? Something you said to me was we unlock our potential by taking on the big goals. So what was the challenge? What was the big goal? What was the opportunity that you saw when you joined?
Thanks, Ron. So I joined Cash Crusaders in 2007, and after about a month of being in the company, I had identified that our point of sale system wasn't of the level that was going to take us to the next level where you can 10x the business, and it was just antiquated in terms of what I identified as being a point of sale system, and then e-commerce also was very new in South Africa, but I identified that we need to have a better e-commerce offering than what we had. So I set about building a point of sale system. And the story goes, 2008 financial crisis hit, and I had identified a provider that was going to build a point of sale system, and we had built a specification document of quite substantial, it was a meaty document, 200 odd pages, where I knew that if I had that point of sale system, the business would fly. And in 2008, the market the stock market crashed, as we know, the financial crisis, and the providers that were going to build it just went away. They said, sorry, we can't build this thing for you anymore.
Okay, so you saw the potential to take a good business to put in the systems and e-commerce that would take it to the next level.
Yeah.
But life got in the way, the financial crisis, and suddenly that vision kind of went away. So how did you react to that? How did you deal with it?
So I always believe you've got to pick big goals in life, and then you've got to be able to fail fast and succeed quickly. So because no one would build the point of sale system, I said to the chairman, we will build this point of sale system ourselves. And our current provider of the point of sale system was Pilot, and even they said, but you can't build a point of sale system. You're not even a tech company, never mind a point of sale company. And I said, watch me. So I went and sourced programmers, and we built the point of sale system.
Fantastic. So you didn't let the circumstances stop you. You rose to the challenge.
Yeah, so it didn't all go swimmingly. The first time we launched the point of sale system, it failed, which I think just is one of those things that you accept in life. And we then went back to the drawing board, fixed the things that were in the point of sale system, and then relaunched it a year later. And from then, that point of sale system became a foundation of our business.
Okay. And, to take things forward, as you said, you're not a developer, are you? I mean, you wrote quite a spec document, which I believe ran to a few hundred pages, but you're not a developer. You had to bring in the right people. How did you go about that?
So I was looking for programmers, and this one guy, let's call him Joe.
I like that name. I like Joe.
When I was interviewing for programmers, I was looking for a particular quality, and that was about where they have failed in their careers, and could they quote me an example. So in the interview process, it was one of the questions I asked. And, the first guy that came in for the interview, I said to him, tell me about a failure that you've had in business and how you dealt with that. He said, he kind of mentioned something about the failure and then just skirted the issue and tried to get off topic and get onto where he could, like, blow his trumpet about his successes.
Yeah.
The second guy, he spoke about the failures, but then he went on to blame the manager, he blamed the team, he blamed those around him. And then I had this third guy, Joe, and Joe, there was a humility and an appreciation for failure, that he admitted where he failed. He said that he needed to go and learn more. He had to go and reach out to, get additional support. And I liked Joe's approach to that. And I hired him to build the point of sale system.
So he was speaking your language.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you used the word humility. Do you think humility is an important quality in business?
I think it's not enough. People try and wear a mask at work where they come to work to try and impress you. And I didn't want people that were going to wear a mask. I wanted people that would come in, if they failed, they would admit that failure, learn from it very quickly, and move on. When people hide mistakes and they don't have that humility to admit the mistakes, they actually make the business slow down. They almost become stumbling blocks in the business. And that's what I tried to take out as a stumbling block.
Okay.
All right. So I want to check quickly, Sean, because I've actually brought up that word humility at some point in the conversation about leadership. And somebody said, well, humility doesn't belong in leadership because people will walk all over you, and you kind of have to tell people how good you are with things, and then so that people can respect you. But I'm hearing you then bring it up. Doesn't it then make people look weak? Because that seems that that's what people would think.
No, I think it's quite the opposite. So for me, I tell my staff, I used to say, you don't work for me, you work for your CV. You actually don't work for the company, you work for your CV. And my job is to make sure I retain the intellectual knowledge in my company for as long as I can. There are knowledge workers out there that are exportable, they are marketable, they can go and work for someone else. If I can retain those people, then I've done my job.
Yeah.
You won't get it right without humility.
Yeah. Now I hear that. And I suppose the humility also comes from you as a leader, knowing what you are not capable of in this instance, right? And then being able to say, you know what, I don't know how to do this.
So I like to say that I want to be the one who's not the cleverest person in the room. I want myself to be the cleverest person in the room, because out of that, you're going to get people challenging each other to rise to leaders.
Yeah, you're on the Leadership Masterclass, and we are talking to Sean Stegmann as well as Ron Hyams. They're talking about leadership, and already the conversation has come to having touching on this piece that I'm sure you've had quite a lot on this show, where while we have not necessarily used the word humility, but I think the whole idea around leaders being conscious about what they're capable of and what they're not capable of, and being able to walk into the room. But what I like, Sean, about also what you're saying is the whole idea around when we define the organization as a collection of people brought together for a particular purpose, there's something there about you are the one that's collecting these people. So I hear that you were very thorough in who you are bringing, because we tend to bring the wrong people into the organization, and then we now have to be caught on the back foot and have to manage these things. What do you have to say about that piece?
So my chairman once made a comment to me. He was reading some literature about hiring, and he says that hiring is a skill and retention of people is an even greater skill. So when you hire right, you've done your job. And I had people that worked for me for more than a decade. Some people worked for 15 years. When you've got that right, then you've succeeded as a leader. So you've hired right, you've trained right, and you've mentored right. Those are the ingredients for that.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is a good time to take a quick pause because we are more music, more inspiration. And then, Ron, when we come back, you carry on with the conversation in terms of, I know you have like lots of questions prepared for us and for Sean in this instance, as can be seen already with what you've just asked. But for now, we need to take a little bit of music. So this is Algebra and Rainbow in Your Eyes. We'll be back.
Got a hold on me, you won't let go, because it ain't the real thing, babe. I just wanna let you know that I love you always, girl. More and more. That I get that foot, that feet credit just for me getting close to you. When I listen to your heartbeat, not another sound so sweet. Would you be?
Yeah.
Mama, come on, hold my hand. The highest mountain. Say, on the 7 seas, just no matter where you're with us at the time. So good. One desire, life to speed love and love, I should. Kiss your eyes, it's the way the boat to the wind. I'm gonna take you for my wife.
You only have an hour, yeah. We can't see what questions I want to ask you. No, but he's got other ones on YouTube.
Yeah, true.
So he's, it's on LinkedIn. So he puts it on LinkedIn. People can join.
Sure, in the frame. Yeah.
Sometimes I like to ride. Sit me down, starry eyes. Your rainbow so myself, and I had better look for your super califragilistic moon that color the rainbow that don't seem that you gotta shine and shine, honey. Better shine, shine for me.
That was the music there by Al Jarreau and The Rainbow in Your Eyes. This is the music I grew up with. I remember I was like growing up in my mother's house. My mother's house lived in a little small back room, and I would be lying on my bed, on her bed, because it wasn't my bed. And this music would be playing. What is your relationship with music, Sean, before we carry on?
I grew up in the, the 80s was my kind of, most of my music was from the 80s. So, yeah, I'm those from the era of the Boy George.
No. So Ron, over to you. And I'm sure there's lots of stuff. What's your relationship with music? I saw you were like...
Very Al Jarreau. I mean, I haven't listened to him. I've got to confess, for a long time, and I'm remembering. Oh yeah, man, I should listen to more of that.
Yeah.
I did enjoy. Actually, my son's friend had a Pink Floyd party, and they got up and they played music, and it was fantastic. So that was something I enjoyed.
Yeah. Let's carry on with the leadership conversation. Over to you, Ron.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I want to get back to Joe. And so you were quite careful about how he employed the man, and he had humility and he had a learning mindset. That became tested, didn't it?
Yeah. So we went, I don't want to cast your minds back to March 2020, where we were told COVID was going to lock us down. And I had identified that we had been working on an e-commerce offering for some time, but we couldn't get the replication to work. In secondhand, you can't have two, let's say you've got one cell phone, and you've got two customers that come in at exactly the same time. You can't have both people pay for it and only one gets it. You have to have a very slick replication system that can make only one person buy it and block the other one, even if they came in within milliseconds of each other. So we went into lockdown and we started building this replication system, and we came out of lockdown and we got back to work on the 1st of May. That's after we had been in lockdown. And the Minister of Trade and Industry had said only online retailers could trade. Bricks and mortar, physical retailers were not allowed to trade. So you weren't allowed to open your doors. So here I've got, all my stores crying to get trading. They've been in lockdown for 66 days and we couldn't trade. We just couldn't trade. So we had to get this replication system working.
So Sean, when you say all the stores, about 260 stores, and I'm imagining thousands of families, working people, and dependents.
You can take an average of 15 people working per store, and you've got 260 stores. So those are the people that are, crying out to get working. Yeah. So I'm driving down the highway and I'm excited. I've told my franchisees that we're going to be trading online, and everyone was excited that we were going to do this. And I get a phone call from my from Joe, and he says, the replication doesn't work. I failed you. And I felt my heart sort of sink into my stomach, and I thought, oh, this is terrible. And I just thought to myself, how am I going to explain this to my franchisees? How am I going to even get to explain this? And I just remember Joe being quite frenetic, and I said, Joe, don't worry. This is how we roll. We now know what we're not going to do. I said, failure is just part of the process. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the drawing board, and we're going to go and learn what we're going to do better, and we will go and build that replication system. So you got all the developers around a table the very next day. That's even the ones that in India, we all got around the table, and then we worked out what the problem was. And then within another 30 days, we launched our click and collect service with a full e-commerce offering. And we even were able to then have a television campaign that we were able to use to drive the e-commerce with the success that we had got from our e-commerce build.
Fantastic. Sean, there's a piece of this story that I think is very important, principle of leadership, because in a way, I think you've had some humility in the way you tell it, because to protect Joe from blame and criticism wasn't going to come from you, but just describe to us the bigger picture. What does it take to create, I'm going to say, a safe space where people could re-engage and learn and fix?
Yeah.
What did that take?
So it was a very difficult time. I had to go and tell my chairman, and my chairman said, oh, this was devastating news. And I said, I back my team. I'm not going to blame anybody. There's no blame that's going around here. Back my team. They did the best they can, and they will recover. And they did. And there was a lot of animosity you could hear in people's voices. There was disappointment. I had to go online, on a Zoom call, because Zoom had become the new way that you spoke to everyone. I called all the franchisees onto a Zoom call, and I just took the blame for myself. I said, this is what we did. It's the best we could have done. I couldn't have asked for my guys to do any more, and we will go back to the drawing board and fix it.
Yeah, and you did.
Yeah,
and just play out the story.
So we got it working. We got ourselves into we then went, because we had now fixed this and we had this TV campaign. We went quite large on TV with this ad campaign, and click and collect became something that was quite new in South Africa. It hadn't really been, no one really knew what click and collect was. So we did this whole education via this TV campaign, which elevated Cash Crusaders, because everyone was hearing about Cash Crusaders and click and collect, and in the background that was just our e-commerce offering.
Brilliant.
Yeah, lots of very interesting lessons there. Also to learn in terms of what I'm hearing as well, Sean. I think the whole idea in a moment of crisis, it's very easy for many of us as leaders to spend a lot of time pointing fingers, trying to find the problem, trying to find somebody to persecute. But it sounded like you were focusing more on the outcome. What are we really trying to do here, and getting on with it. But I think in terms of the stories of COVID, particularly, there has been so much that we needed to learn in general as humans, as leaders, about how to respond. I remember that working with people, many leaders were very anxious. Many staff members were anxious. Everybody had an anxiety. How did you manage all of that, plus then the innovation to be able to get the business going? Because I'm imagining that click and collect and innovating and coming up with new ideas in the middle of an anxious process is usually not very common.
So Mongezi, when you're going to take on big goals, and when you're going to build your own e-commerce system, when you're going to build your own point of sale system, we've even built our own learner management system. You got to see failure as part of that process. If you're going to take on big goals and think that you're going to knock it out the park on the first time you hit a ball, you delude yourself. So rather take on the big goals, but embrace failure, that it's part of the process. The idea is not to fail, but if you do fail, because you've taken on such big goals, you always can forgive yourself. But don't take on small goals and play small. Take on the big goals, embrace failure, be it part of your process, because that way people will want to fail quickly and succeed soon.
Yeah. Speaking of crisis management, we are actually in the middle of load shedding. So I'm seeing that my battery is about to die quickly. So what I want to do is take a quick break, and we're not going anywhere. We're just taking a quick break to make sure that we correct the situation, and then we carry on with the conversation with Lad. I did say we are live, so anything can happen, right? You are on Vuka Online Radio, and we are streaming live with Stegmann and Hyams. We'll be back after this.
Products and features at your fingertips. Open your account in minutes and transact easily with your free virtual card. Get more from your money, pay less interest on your credit, and earn more on your savings. Enjoy smart ways to pay medical expenses and get flexible gym visits with Vitality Pay as you gym through Discovery Pay. Track your spend with our smart budgeting fee for a real-time view of your finances. Get all this and more. The future of banking now.
No one decides to go into debt. It creeps up on you, slowly. Debt follows debt, follows debt. Unless you do something about it. Face your debt problems before they cripple you. It's time to do something.
More music, more inspiration. Vuka Online. More music, more inspiration. Vuka Online.
You are on more music, more inspiration on Vuka Online Radio, and that problem was averted just on time as we were talking about crisis management, right? Because what tends to happen with these kinds of things, and I like what you were saying just before we were rudely interrupted by the load shedding there, is that when you're taking big projects, you have to then be ready and prepare yourself. But one of the other things we were talking about with the team relating to what you've just said there, Sean, if I may follow up a little bit, is the whole idea of preparation. I mean, we've now just had this whole thing with load shedding, and there's a lot of big stories about people and entrepreneurs are losing stock, and there's the whole thing with the chicken and poultry. So people seem to be falling victim into these circumstances in this instance. What advice would you have on people that are currently going through that, having gone through the experience that you have just shared with us now?
So firstly is my principles are on learning leadership. That's the value proposition that I see as that's sometimes lacking in leaders. And if you can see learning leadership and failure as two sides of a coin, so the learning's on top and failure's underneath. If you can teach people or allow people to become proactive learners and make the learning in your organization compulsory, you will make less mistakes and people will move quicker and things will progress quicker. If you're going to hide the mistakes, that's when the business gets tripped up. And a lot of companies lack the ability to be able to see learning as part of a process and as a culture. They try and say, oh, learning is, if you fail, then you are bad. Or if you fail, you are ostracized or you chastised. So what they're going to do is they're going to hide the mistakes. And they're going to become very good at keeping those mistakes from you. So you're not even going to see those mistakes. They're only going to come out in months or years' time. So rather, get the mistakes out quickly, learn from them, move forward. That's what I would say.
I love that. I love that. We have about 7 minutes to start wrapping up the show, Ron. What else do you have to share with us in this conversation?
Well, Mongezi, can we take some Q&A? Is that possible?
Well, we probably can. I'll check. We can take a quick break, and then I'll check if there are any questions that are happening on the YouTube channel as well as on other channels. But maybe so. You don't have a question? You don't have anything else that you wanna ask?
I think
Sean. Then we'll come back and take the Q&A.
I think I just wanted to give Sean a chance to summarize the core principles. So
yeah, that would be good.
Saying, Sean, if you sum it up in your words.
So you've got to be able to take on your own big goals in life.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to have a learning mindset, and that learning mindset means you've got to be comfortable with failure. Then you've got to have a bias for action. Everything revolves around taking action. If you're going to sit there and think about your goals, it's not happening. Those are the.
That's very good. It's very good.
Okay. Yeah. But I have a question. Then if Ron, you don't have a question. What do you think leaders are struggling with? I mean, having you hang out with these guys, and I think I'm directing it to the both of you actually. And maybe let's start with you, Sean. What do you think today leaders are struggling with, and how do you propose they could start addressing that?
I think ambiguity is the biggest. I think leaders struggle with ambiguity. I think the world is a changing world with many moving parts. I think digital disruption is a real thing in business. And leaders have to get to terms with that. I think knowledge workers are empowered, and if you're not going to look after your intellectual capital, it's going to walk out the door. So you lose institutional knowledge. I think those would be the biggest things leaders grapple with right now.
Yeah. So and ambiguity, the idea that you don't even really know what's going to happen next, and nothing is what it seems. Actually, I think that's actually the best way to summarize it. Thank you for that, Ron. What about you? What's your answer to that question?
I'd agree with everything Sean said. We do live in a complex world, moving parts, and look, I've got a bias. I'm a coach, but I do. What I'm about to say, I truly believe is that leadership is no longer a solo sport. It's not the model of the heroic leadership. The leader who's got all the answers is no more. And we need to work collaboratively. We need to work in teams. The project we worked on together, I won't mention the company name, but the CEO said no single leader can or should have all the answers. That's a big reframe. So leader being curious, but I think there's a place for support, a reflection partner, somebody to help you think through all this complexity and say, let me think it through and then find a way forward. And I don't think that's obvious anymore, even if we're really smart. And I'm thinking, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, they have coaches. And, we wouldn't think of a football team without a coach. We wouldn't think of a tennis player without a coach. And I really do believe the time has come where, if you're serious about your business, you need to either find an internal coach and a great set of colleagues, or ideally an external coach. I think it makes sense.
I see two questions about branding here as well as...
That's also your game, so I don't,
Yeah, sorry, Ron, I interrupted you there. We got cut off, so I wasn't sure that you were finished. I see there are two questions around branding and about managing families. So I'll read that out loud because it's on my Facebook page, so you guys won't be able to see it on the YouTube channel. But before we do, I want to take a quick break so that I can check if there's other questions somewhere else. So you are on the Leadership Masterclass. So we are having our final few minutes with Sean Stegmann as well as Ron Hyams. And Sean has summarized a lot of the lessons that he's been speaking about as far as leadership is concerned. And in the next hour, we will be dealing with, we will be going into just after 11, we will be having a conversation around the whole issue with the Orthodox Church. What is the crisis in the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, which is one of the largest and oldest in Africa, but it seems like there's been a split with its ranks after 3 bishops formed their own patriarchate and named it Oromia and Nations and Nationalities Synods last month. So we have a couple of experts that will be sharing their own opinions, a theologian, a priest, and a chairman. I want to say, guys, and I don't know, maybe this is also another question: politics of the church versus politics of the organization. Are they the same? But we will be back after this. I'm asking silly questions.
It's not a question I want to take.
$39.99. It's just $44.99. Buy any 2 and score a saving of 10. More deals, more fun in store. Life's better with Pep.
You're on the Leadership Masterclass with Vuka Online Radio. With Vuka Online Radio.
You are on the Leadership Masterclass. You see, it's kind of like going ahead of me there. Welcome back. So, politics of the church, politics of organization. What do you think?
I've learned not to talk about sex, religion. So I'll hand this one over to you, Sean.
I want to take the fifth. I don't answer.
All right, now I won't put you on the spot there. But I you see, the thing with me is I'm not afraid to talk about these things. But I was once asked on a leadership program, and I was coaching a pastor of a church. It was like a major deacon, American, and all of that. And sure, I was invited to this church for a leadership to work with their board. And my God, forgive the pun.
Yeah.
It was very scary. And so as we were having a conversation, somebody said, well, politics of the church, Ronelle, you know Ronelle, Ron. And so we were reflecting with Ronelle afterwards, and she was going like, politics of the church are so difficult because they have Jesus in them. So anyway, let's move on with that on that funny note. So the 2 questions that are coming up on my on the screen here. One relates, Sean, around family management. People keep talking about, I'm using the word work-life balance, but that's not the word they use there. How did you manage to balance family, normal life, while at the same time having to run a large company? You want to share some tips?
Yeah. So I encourage work-life balance, but as the CEO, I struggled with that in that I traveled a lot. My job involved traveling, like Valentine's days, there were very few of them that I was at home for. I just took it, that's part of the job, but for my team, I made sure that work-life balance was part of their life, because you don't want burnout. You don't want people to have unhappy homes. What's that saying that goes, unhappy wife, unhappy life?
Yes. Cool. And with the last minute that we have, thank you for that. So there's no balance, but it sounds like you have to make the decisions that you have to take, that you have to make and decide what's important each time. That's kind of what I'm hearing you say. Managing, this is a very big question, but if you can summarize it in half a minute, it will be good. How do you manage a brand as big as Cash Crusaders, and what could get it in trouble? What have you learned?
So firstly, is many hands make light work. I had a great team around me. So this wasn't a one-man show. I had a great team. And what can trip it up is when people are not aligned to your company's values. You've got to have a strong beacon of what your vision is for the business and what the values are. And if people are aligned to the company's values, then invariably you're going to have less damage to your brand. When people are not, you run the risk of brand damage.
Yeah, that's a really good note to leave it on. Closing words from you, Sean, and then we go to you, Ron.
I just want to thank you guys for having me here today. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you for those lessons, Ron.
Yeah. No, it's look, we're talking about learning leadership, and we're learning. Yeah. So it's a journey. Yeah. And again, like Sean, I really appreciate. I'm sort of aware of even though we're not talking to all the audience, it's lovely to have a couple of questions, and that you've turned up this morning, people, and listening to this is a wonderful opportunity and a privilege for us. So thank you.
I will send some of the questions, because usually when you're streaming on YouTube, people come also afterwards, and then they keep asking questions as if the show is live.
Yeah, and actually, Mongezi, I would add one more thing. We love this.
We actually don't have time, Ron, but go quickly, very, very quickly.
If anybody wants to make contact, maybe through you, we'd love to hear from people, continue the conversation.
Yeah, no, but you can share quickly. How do people reach you? They can reach you directly as well.
I think Google our LinkedIn profiles and contact details. And again, I think if that doesn't work, contact Mongezi.
It's Ron, Hyams, if you want to check it. It's good to say Google me. People have said to me, it's sometimes it sounds arrogant. No, it doesn't. We're Googleable these days. And Sean, how do people reach you?
You can look at my LinkedIn, Sean Stegmann. Sean is S-E-A-N, it's the Irish spelling of Sean, and Stegmann, S-T-E-G-M-A-N-N.
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the time. And Sean, we usually close the show with a song. We probably won't play it because we don't have a lot of time to play it, but we'll play it after the hour. What song can we play for you after the hour?
War is Stupid by the Culture Club.
There you go. We never know what's gonna come up. You've been on the Leadership Masterclass. You've been on the Leadership Masterclass, and I have been here with Ron Hyams as well as Sean Stegmann, and we have been talking leadership. And join us again next week as we continue our conversation with women in leadership. I'm not sure who's going to be coming through, but we will always be here. We are on the top of the hour, and we're going to the news, and I'll see you next week. And thank you, guys. Have a lovely one.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.